Welcome to Morning Infusion with Dr. V, where we are intentional about connecting you with leaders that have overcome so that you know that the possibilities are endless. It's Dr. V here, where our coaching program teaches nurses to work from their computers anywhere around the world, making money and owning their own time. Our featured guest today is one of my closest friends, Clarice Rodriguez. So, Clarice Rodriguez is a co owner and lead writer for the projectnurse.com. She has been a registered nurse for 8 years and has served in the areas of emergency, post anesthesia care, and clinical IT. Clarice started the Project Nurse with the goal of offering free articles, resources, healthcare discussion, and news to nurses all over the world. So, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you.
So one of the things that we wanted to talk about, Clarice she just had a baby. Her name is Savannah. What her cute self. And so we wanted to talk about infertility. So just we'll start off with why you became a nurse. So full transparency, Clarice became a nurse, and she was one of my baby nurses, and she's phenomenal. Just absolutely, just a great nurse in her clinical care, and so. I just absolutely loved her. So we've stayed connected, of course, throughout the years. So tell us why you became a nurse from the beginning.
Well, one, thank you for that awesome intro. I became a nurse because I knew I wanted to help people. My first degree is in biology, and I did a lot of lab work, but I ended up finding it to be pretty unfulfilling. So funny thing is, if you had asked me at 18, 19 in college if I wanted to be a nurse, I'd have been like, absolutely not. But I honestly couldn't tell you what made me take the leap other than I knew I wanted to help people. So I took the leap. I didn't know any nurses. I think I had one cousin that was an LPN at the time, but I didn't bother to actually ask her anything. So other than that, I had literally zero experience with nurses, but I closed my eyes and jumped in, and 8 years later, here I am.
Here you are. Here you are. Now, what were some of the challenges that you faced initially in your nursing profession?
Just adjusting, especially in nursing school, because I thought more like a science person. Like I said, my first degree was in biology. You really have to change your thinking and your approach as a nurse. And then just matching up the ideals. Cause like I said, I didn't know anybody. I didn't have anybody, but like, look, like, this is what it's like. So versus the picture in my head versus the reality of being a nurse were two very different things.
Yeah, it is definitely for sure. Because whenever you go into nursing, you really don't, like, I didn't understand the whole concept of, like what people who have all these disease processes, like what they have to go through, like the side effects of the medications and things of that nature, and the reality of the reason why they don't take their medication, because we're so common, like we want to say that they're non-compliant when we don't know the struggles that they have.
Right.
And so that's one thing that I had to embrace. So now, once you got married to the amazing John, you decided that you wanted to have children. Now, how long after you got married did you want to have children? And when did you get married? What year?
We got married. So actually, full disclosure, we didn't get married at our actual ceremony. So I always have to struggle with this because we technically got married at December, which was 2016. But then the ceremony, it was January of 2017. So I have to think about it. So yeah, we got married December of 2016. And we were kind of on the fence about children, like most millennials are, because, it's expensive. So we were definitely on the fence for a while. And I think, in life, you just kind of get a bit complacent about time. And in my mind, I had more time than I really did. So I was like, it's fine. And then I was like, I'm getting close to 35. So I brought up the children thing to John again. And he was just like, yeah, I want a baby. And I was like, oh, all right. I guess we've jumped off the fence.
So how long after that? How long after you were married did you want to have?
So we started trying when I was 34, so about 2 years ago.
Okay. All right. Now, when did you know that this was going to be a struggle more than you anticipated?
As we got close to trying for about a year, because I'd already known that, they don't consider you infertile until you've been trying for a year. So we started getting close to a year, and I was like, I feel like this kind of should have happened by now. And then I didn't have any sort of signs. Like, I didn't even so much as have a late period where I could have looked back and been like, you know what? I wonder if that was an early miscarriage. Like, I had nothing like that. So I'm like, that kind of leads me to think that there could be a conception issue going on, and there was.
So now, how did you feel about that once you?
Honestly, that whole process, I didn't like internalize or blame myself for anything. I actually handled it, I think, relatively well because I didn't take it personally. It was just kind of like one of those things. And I also, before I became a nurse, I did, I was actually a prenatal tissue tech for about a year. And so I learned a whole lot, and I just saw just how often things like miscarriages happen. Also knew from college that only 1 out of every 5 fertilized eggs even implants in the first place. So I just happened to have known a lot about the subject for somebody that was like intermittently wanted children. So I was able to not take it so personally or so hard, like something was wrong with me. I just happened to have known that, those are just a break sometimes.
And I think that that's important for, a lot of people to know, because the reality is that I think a lot of people blame themselves, or they think, well, something's wrong with me because I'm not getting pregnant, when it's so much more common.
It's so much more complicated and way more common than people realize.
Yes. And so people don't, they don't talk about it, right? It's not something that is talked about a lot of times. So you just think you can just get pregnant and pop out a baby, when that thing is just not that way.
It's not that way.
Now,
for a handful of people it is, but for a lot of people it's not. And that's why they don't even refer you to any specialist until you've been trying for a year, So
and what were some of the treatment modalities that you tried to get pregnant?
So we were really fortunate in that. So there's 2 things that if you talk to a fertility doctor, that after you get your labs and they kind of get a baseline of picture, there's basically 2 roads to go down. There's artificial insemination, also called IUI, or intrauterine insemination. And that is when they take the sperm and go ahead and put it right into your uterus in case there's motility problems or sperm quality problems. So they don't have to travel as far, they don't have to work as hard. And then usually that's the first step. And then the second step is actually what everybody's probably even more familiar with, which is IVF, or in vitro fertilization. So kind of feeling, because at this point now I'm 35, so at this point I'm feeling the time crunch. So the fertility doctor had brought up artificial insemination. I was like, I looked up the success rates. They're 10 to 15% for, I think, women under age 37. And then it just, of course, declines from there. And I'm like, is that gonna be a waste of time? And the doctor was like, well, no. She goes, honestly, I think it's worth, you guys trying a couple of times. And because the success rates are so low, you usually do it more than once, right? So I'm just thinking about the cost and the time, and I'm like, Doc, I don't know. But we went with it, and the first time we got pregnant. So
good.
Definitely against the odds there.
Good. Now, tell us how you felt the day that you found out that you were pregnant.
Obviously shocked, right? Because I was already buckled in for the long run. I'm like, this is going to take months. This is going to suck. And so I took like 5 pregnancy tests that day. I went out to the store to even get an expensive one because I didn't trust my little dip one. I took like 3 different types of pregnancy tests, and they were all positive. So shocked.
Sweet. So now, when did you call John, and like, how did that conversation go?
I didn't call him. I waited the whole day. Waited for him to come home, and I hid the positive pregnancy tests from him, lured him in so that he uncovered them. And he was just as shocked too. So
I love it. So now what did your mom say whenever she found out?
She was just happy. She was like, yay.
I love it. Now, when did you know that you might experience some trouble with your pregnancy?
I didn't. I honestly didn't. I did have a lot of like pelvic discomfort. Some of it, from what I read about, just sounded like round ligament pain, which is incredibly common. Your uterus is stretching, right? And some of the symptoms weren't. But it wasn't anything that like I found necessarily alarming. I'm just like, well, I've never been pregnant before. I don't know what to expect, and I'm growing a human. So, that probably explains a lot of my discomfort. But honestly, had no idea.
Had no idea.
No idea.
So now, when did you went to Duke, right? Or did you? So tell us the story about how she delivered, because she delivered super early. So when did she deliver?
Yes, 24 weeks, 3 days. And for anyone that doesn't know or forgot, fetal viability is 24 weeks. So at 22 weeks, we needed a repeat fetal scan because she was so small and so balled up for her first scan. I think it was about 18 weeks they did it. That the ultrasound tech couldn't get all the pictures that they needed. So they're like, you know what, we'll let her grow. Everything looks good from what we can see. They're like, if you want, you can come back in a month. She goes, or if you want to come back next week to our maternal fetal medicine people, we can send you, because my doctor admitted to Rex, so they're literally right next door to Rex. It's like, oh, you can come back to Rex, the maternal fetal medicine people, and they'll do it. And I'm like, oh, everything looks good. I said, I'm confident she's all right. We can wait a month, right? Month goes by. Do the repeat scan. She's a little bit bigger. It's going a little bit better. But the ultrasound tech is like, man, she's really low. Her head is really low. And I'm like, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, at this point, the top of my uterus should be about like my belly button. And I had just started to feel her move, I think the week and a half before. So I'm like, yeah, I mostly feel her kind of low. And it's interesting that she's saying that she's kind of low. And I'm like, I wonder what's up. Mm-hmm. So it's just a routine visit. So ultrasound tech leaves, goes, gives the picture to the doctor. My butt doesn't hit the chair before the doctor's like, come in here, comes and pulls me into the office. And she's like, hey, your cervix is about gone. So that was how I found out, because a month before, everything was fine. So I was effaced, they guessed about like, depending on who checked me, 70 to 90% effaced that morning. So they sent me to Rex. Rex was like, oh no, you have to go somewhere else. So we got accepted to Duke, because how that process goes is for if you do become obviously in labor, especially that early, they want to make sure that they have a NICU bed available. So of course, since they're part of UNC, they tried to send me to UNC. They didn't have a NICU bed. Duke did. So we were accepted to Duke. They transferred me over there. And Duke kind of felt like I was stable, so I stayed the night. No real changes the next day. They were like, all right, we're going to send you home, follow up with our maternal fetal medicine people. Okay, great. Now, that was a Tuesday I got admitted. We were discharged Wednesday. That Sunday, my water broke. So I was like, John, we're going back to Duke. So we went back to Duke. And this is where I learned things that I honestly had no idea. Because you talk about premature rupture of membranes in nursing school, but like you don't get that deep into it. Or you certainly, I don't remember getting that deep into it. What happens if it happens this early? So I honestly had no idea what to expect. But past 23 weeks, for the most part, the babies can stay in the uterus. The big challenge is infection. So they transferred me to Duke, they put me on antibiotics, and they said 50% of women will go into labor in the first 24 hours. If you make it to that milestone, the next milestone is another 50% will make it a week. After that, we hope you make it to 34 weeks. That was the goal. So like I said, my water broke Sunday, got through the first 24 hours. I was fine. Saturday night, I felt her lower than I'd ever felt her before, or Friday night rather. I felt her lower than I ever felt her before. I let the nurse know. They checked me, and they were like, "You're 5 centimeters dilated."
So effaced. So the audience knows. So effaced is the thinning of the cervix, yes. And then dilated is the opening of the cervix.
Correct. So at that point, my cervix had thinned and had opened to 5 centimeters, and on a term baby, you try to get to 10 centimeters to deliver, right? So I have this tiny baby that's only a little more than half cooked, and I'm 5 centimeters dilated. So I was like, this is not good, is it? So basically hung around another 24 hours that Sunday morning, which was like the next goalpost we were trying to hit. I went into labor Saturday night, like full on active labor, and she was born at 5:29 Sunday morning. So we almost made it a week, but not quite.
So now, how did you like? What was going through your mind during that time?
Honestly, like nothing. I've never been more present for anything in my entire life. Like I had that thought. I was like, this is it. Your body's going to do what your body's going to do. Just go with it. And so I did. Like it's the most out of control thing you can ever experience in your life. Like there's nothing you can do. So you just
go with the flow.
Just go with the flow.
Gotcha. Now you were able to deliver Savannah with her adorable self. Now, what was some of the things going through your mind? What's after she delivered? Like,
Mhm.
what were you thinking?
I don't know. It took in that immediate period. I was still just like, not everything had hit me, right? It didn't really hit me for a few days. The adrenaline was still going. I was still just in awe. I was still amazed that, they were able to keep her alive. So really in that immediate period, I was just grateful and just in awe. And it wasn't until really after we were discharged and I was home for a couple of days where it really hit me that like this was very, 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 very heavy. But there was definitely those first few days where, shock was just really it. And I didn't really have too many thoughts other than I just wanted to spend as much time with her before discharge as possible. Then after that is kind of when the worries and the concern and the internalization kind of started to happen, and where I started to have to fight again, blaming myself. That was when it got heavy for me, not so much the fertility part, but in that, is there anything I could have done differently to prevent this? Logically, I knew the answer was no, but those emotions started to hit me so hard after I was discharged. And it was just lots of things start going through your mind at that point. That's a very hard period.
Mm-hmm. That postpartum period, I'm going to tell you,
it's heavy.
That thing is something that I was just like, why did somebody tell me about this? What is going on?
Like the flood of complicated things you feel. It's just, I couldn't even describe it, but it's a heavy time. And especially when, you deliver 3 months early.
She is going to, I love seeing pictures of her. So now, what is some advice you would give someone that is in the midst of infertility at this time?
Just have faith. Just have faith and just keep going. And just realize that all you can do is what you can do. And just push forward. It's literally all you can do. And don't beat yourself up, because again, a lot of these things are not going to be, they're not in your control. So you have to go with it.
I think that some people think that, it's just, again, I think some people think that it's just normal. And I thought that as well, when I was going, because, I just fought not to get pregnant when I was supposed to. Right. that was my biggest fight.
Right. Which is what most of us are like, not until I'm ready.
That's right. But, and it wasn't until I really, of course, got involved in healthcare and really understood that it's not normal all the time, that, you just get pregnant and pop out a baby and everything's all good,
Right. And just like any other abnormal body process, right? Like, we focus on the modifiable things, like, weight control and type 2 diabetes, for example. And maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe, we think that, oh, you smoke, so you got cancer, but it's not always that way, right? Like plenty of non-smokers develop cancer and have good diets and exercise, and we just don't know why. So sometimes we can do the best we're going to do, and things just happen in our bodies. And, infertility is no different.
Yeah. And that DNA, the reality is that the DNA, makes a difference. Literally, it can make the difference between, like you said, whether we smoke and we get cancer, whether we don't smoke and we get cancer. So it's just, one of those things. Now, what is some advice that you would give someone who has a premature baby?
So I'm only 4.5 weeks postpartum myself. So I'm still working on my advice and learning myself, but I think definitely in that initial period. And one amazing thing about the maternal fetal medicine doctors have been, because they've obviously see this a lot. This is what they do. Before I had really even taken it all on board, they were already like, "Don't blame yourself. There's nothing you did to cause this." So that is the big thing. And I think it's especially hard for women because we carry the babies, right? So there's overcoming this feeling of that your body failed you and failed your child, which again is very heavy and very difficult to deal with. So trying not to internalize that, and again, just you have to have faith. Your baby needs you. They push what they call kangaroo care very, very heavily in NICU, which is basically just skin to skin contact, which is another thing that blew me away because I didn't think we'd be able to hold her for closer to 30 weeks. But if they start progressing well, and so they start them off in high humidity and wean it down. So once the humidity gets weaned down, you can hold them for as long as they'll tolerate it. And what they found out was that the parents that kangarooed their kid the most often, those kids have better outcomes. So even though it's such a helpless feeling and it's very easy to slip down a path of negative emotions, it's important to have hope, and it's important to, the only thing you can do is kangaroo that child really and be present. So it's so important that you have some sort of faith structure, some sort of hope and belief to keep you going every day, because that child needs you, and you're not useless and you're not alone. So that's a big thing.
It's I saw, I love TikTok. So I saw this TikTok yesterday with this woman. Like the kid was screaming, and she apparently had a C-section, because you had the thing up, and so they brought the kid over to her, and so she was just kissing on that baby, and every time they would bring it up to her and she'd kiss on that baby, and that baby would stop crying.
Yeah.
I mean, just soothed.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they pulled the baby away a little bit, the baby started crying again.
and I'll tell you, and it's just so amazing to have. There's one thing that, in a weird way, the blessing, if you could call it that, or the good part, is that you get to finish seeing your baby develop, and it's just mind-blowing because you can tell she recognizes my voice, at 24 weeks. She opened her eyes, I think, at 25 weeks, which they usually don't do until closer to 27 weeks. She heard my voice. She literally turned her head in my direction and tried to force her eyes open until she finally did. So many times when I hold her, you can see her vital signs start to calm down. She starts to calm down. So they know that even that early, they know, they recognize you. And like I said, and they need you. So
I love it. I love it. Savannah better do her thing. I love it.
She's doing her thing.
So what was some of the things that were done for you that helped you most during the time? So that others know what to do.
Well, certainly ask for prayer and encouragement. One big thing that I found that helped, because like I said, you're not alone in this, and the amount of people that, because it's a super personal thing, and there is a lot of emotions, and many of them negative and overwhelming. So like we said in the beginning, people don't really talk about it, which is why I'm willing to talk about it, because I want people to know that you're not alone. In the amount of messages that I have gotten where people are like, "Hey, I was premature," or "Hey, my kids were premature," or "We had this issue and we had this issue," is just overwhelming. So if you can get to that place where you can talk about it, you would be amazed at how many people have your struggle. And the positive stories that I've gotten have just been wonderful, and kind of help build your faith and build your hope. So definitely reaching out to people that have had positive outcomes and positive experiences with this is big. And also just the other good thing about just being able to tell people, or at least certainly people closest to you, what you're going through, is that they can support you, right? So we live about 40 miles from where she is, so we're doing 80 miles a day. So we've had friends that just bless us with, food and gift cards and things like this. Like, hey, let me cash app you some gas money. I know it's hard out there. So just that support and that love has just been just overwhelming and necessary. So like I said, don't feel like you're alone, because you're not. And don't be afraid to tell a couple people closest to you, once you get to that point, what you're going through, because it can make such a big difference. And people can't bless you if they don't know what you're going through.
That's exactly right. So what's your Cash App? Let's say that on this.
What is my Cash App? CRod4585, I think. Clarice Rodriguez.
It's what now? CRod
4585, I think. I forgot. I don't use it that often. Oh, wait, here's my phone.
Yeah, there go your phone. My husband says hello.
So, say what? Your husband says hello?
Yes. He says,
hey, Laura. I don't know. Look, it's just too much pressure live.
I want you.
Yeah, C-Rod 4585.
C-Rod.
Yep.
4585, and that's the dollar sign. I guess is the front of that. Okay. All right. So we will definitely cash app her some money. Okay, because she's right back for. All right. Thank you for showing up. And I'm sure Project Nurse is on the hold for right now.
It is, unfortunately, but we still got some good stuff up there. theprojectnurse.com. Check us out. We were actually going to try to submit for CEU approval just before I was supposed to have Savannah, which would have been August. Well, she was due in September, so we were going to submit in August. So we're officially behind schedule now, but that's our big push right now, is we want to be able to offer you guys some continuing education material. Got to keep your license up. But there's still some awesome articles and things out there that you can check out while we're on a temporary timeout.
I love it. So we just finished our VP Nursing Business Academy 4-day masterclass. It was such a phenomenal event. You still have time to sign up for VP Nursing Business Academy. Last day is July 5th, 2021. You can jump on a call so we're able to gain clarity on how to create multiple streams of income. You can sign up at VSandVictorPSandPaulNursing.com. I ask that you like and share this podcast. Thank you, Clarice. Morning Infusion with Dr. V is where we are intentional about connecting you with leaders such as Clarice, who has been phenomenal through it all. Just as a nurse, just as a mother, I'm loving that. I'm about to cry. Okay, because
I'm feeling this belief that I'm somebody's mama, to be honest with you.
And that we have overcome so that the possibilities are endless. She overcame infertility, and there's so many things out there about that. So thank you for showing up, and you guys have a phenomenal rest of your day.